I remember the summer I turned 35. I went back to my grandfather's cabin in the Appalachian Mountains. I thought it would be a good place to recharge and take some nice wildlife photos for my online portfolio. I wasn't a professional, but I had been learning for a few years, so I felt comfortable out there. I arrived at the cabin late in the afternoon. It was quiet. Too quiet. The trees seemed to loom over me, watching as I unloaded my gear. I set up my trail camera near the cabin, hoping to catch sight of deer or maybe some bears. The light faded quickly, and a sense of unease crept in. I tried to shake it off as just my imagination. That first night I sat on the porch. The forest was alive with sounds, but then I heard something different. It was soft but deliberate, like something was sneaking around outside. My first thought was a raccoon or a deer. I went inside, shaking off the feeling. The next morning I checked the camera. There were squirrels, birds, and a flurry of leaves. Then I saw it, something moving quickly in the corner of the frame. At first I thought it was nothing, just a trick of the light, but it didn't sit right with me. As the weekend wore on, the rustling continued. It was at night, but also during the day. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Items in the cabin began to shift, like my camera gear. I knew I had left them in certain spots. Was I losing my mind? Part of me wanted to leave, but another part wanted to see what my camera would catch next. I looked at the footage again. That same shadow appeared, but this time it lingered. I felt a chill as I watched. My heart raced. I stepped outside, searching for sounds, but there was just silence. I thought of my grandfather's stories. Did he know something I didn't? Was there really something out there? One evening from my porch I saw it. A figure stood just beyond the tree line, just outside the camera's view. It wasn't fully human, yet it felt like it was observing me. I froze. I wanted to shout, but the words wouldn't come. Then, I blinked, and it was gone. I told myself it was just my imagination. I reviewed the final footage before I left. I couldn't breathe when I saw it. This shadowy figure was even closer to the cabin than before, and I was inside, completely unaware. The unsettling realization gripped me. I was not alone. The woods were alive, but not in a way I understood. I felt a weight in my chest as I drove away. The photos I captured would show nothing, but what did I really catch on that camera? I drove home with a single thought. What else was out there? It felt like a warning, heavy and dark, echoing in my mind, echoing. As soon as I got home, I threw the gear down and paced around my living room. I couldn't shake the images from my mind, the shadow edging closer, the stillness of the woods. I tried to focus on sorting my photos, but my hands wouldn't stop trembling. Each picture felt like another reminder of what I had witnessed. I decided to call my old friend, Jamie. He used to come to the cabin with me, and he was always grounded. I thought he could help me make sense of things. "Hey, it's been a while," Jamie said when he picked up. I could hear the grin in his voice. I hesitated, unsure I should share my experience, but the memory was too vivid. "Yeah, it's been a strange few days. I went up to the cabin." My voice faltered. "I saw something. I think I did." "What do you mean?" he asked, sounding intrigued. "I think something was watching me. I set up a trail cam and there was this shadow. It got closer each time I checked the footage." I confessed, my heart racing again. "Are you sure it wasn't just your imagination? You've been under a lot of stress lately," he said, the skepticism creeping in. "I know what I saw, Jamie," I snapped. Then I softened, embarrassed. "I don't know, but I could swear it was real. I felt it." "Okay, take it easy. Why don't you bring the footage to the next photo club meeting? Let's see what the others think," Jamie suggested. I agreed, though it didn't ease the knot in my stomach. After hanging up, I stared at my camera, the tension rising again. I needed to see the footage one more time. I set everything up in my room, my heart thumping against my chest. The video looped through the same clips, birds, squirrels, and that blur in the corner. But this time when I replayed it, I noticed something new. In one frame, just for a split second, a hand reached out from behind a tree. It was elongated, almost claw-like, like it had come from another world. I gasped, feeling bile rise in my throat as the image lingered in my mind. Then I rushed to my laptop, a new need driving me. I uploaded the clips to share with Jamie and the others. As I waited for them to load, I glanced out of my window. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across my yard. That's when I saw it, an outline darting between the trees bordering the lot. My breath caught in my throat. Was I losing my grip on reality, or was the thing from the cabin following me here? Before I could process what to do, the lights flickered. The power went out. I stood frozen in darkness, the silence enveloping me like the woods. My heart thundered as I realized the truth. The unease from the cabin had followed me. The urgency clawed at my gut. What was happening? I needed to find answers, but I also felt a new wave of fear welling up inside. Someone, or something, was near. I took a shaky breath, trying to calm myself. In the pitch-black darkness, every little sound felt amplified. The creak of the floorboards sounded like a warning. I moved toward the window, drawn by the instinct to look. Maybe I could catch a glimpse of whatever was out there. As I peered outside, I heard a rustle in the bushes beneath the window. My heart raced again. I squinted but saw nothing. Just shadows dancing in the evening light. Forcing myself to stay calm, I backed away from the window, readying myself to find a flashlight. If something was out there, I needed to know. I groped in the dark, fumbling on the shelf until I found my old camping flashlight. I clicked it on, the beam cutting through the darkness in a narrow shaft. I aimed it toward the window again, my pulse quickening as I caught a fleeting glimpse of movement just outside. There it was, a figure about 10 feet away, half hidden by the trees. It stood unnaturally still, staring. I could feel its gaze even through the glass. The flashlight trembled in my grip, but the instinct to shine it forward overpowered my fear. I flashed the beam directly at the figure. Nothing. As soon as the light hit the spot, it was gone. Just vanished into the night. I felt cold sweat trickle down my spine as I scanned the area again. What was I supposed to make of that? My mind flashed back to the clips on my camera. I had caught something on tape, and now it felt like it was here in my yard. An icy knot of dread formed in my stomach. I needed help. The photo club meeting was still 2 days away, but I couldn't just sit and wait. I quickly pulled out my phone, fingers shaking as I dialed Jamie again. The phone rang, but I could hardly breathe as I waited for him to answer. It felt like an eternity. "Hey, what's up?" Jamie's voice came through, casual. I need you to come over," I stammered. "Something's not right. I think something is in my yard." "What do you mean?" He sounded more intrigued than concerned. "It was watching me. And now it's here. I swear I just saw it." I almost shouted into the phone, my words tumbling over one another. Okay, I'll be there in a bit," he said, more serious now. As I hung up, I felt a wave of relief mixed with anxiety. Jamie would help. But deep down, I wondered if it was too late. I moved to the front door, trying to keep my breathing steady. I needed to be ready to face whatever was lurking outside. Just then, I heard a soft thud from the back of the house. My stomach dropped. Should I check or stay put? Then I remembered my camera, all the footage I captured. Evidence of the things that shouldn't be out there. I rushed to grab it when something caught my eye in the dim light. A shape lingering at the edge of my yard. I realized I had only seconds before Jamie would arrive. I had to know if it was really there, if it was real. My gut screamed, warning me to stay inside. But curiosity pulled me toward the door, heart hammering as I turned the knob. I stepped out, flashlight flicking toward the shadow in the distance. What awaited me outside? I didn't know, but I needed to find out. The night air hit me like a wall as I stepped out onto the porch. The coolness settled in my bones, a stark contrast to the heat of my racing heart. I pointed the flashlight toward the shadow, but it was gone, slipped away like smoke. I hesitated, breath shallow but steady. My instinct screamed at me to retreat, but something compelled me to move forward. I moved slowly, each creak of the wooden steps echoing like a signal to whatever lurked in the dark. The flashlight beam searched the edges of my yard, illuminating patches of grass and the thick trees that bordered my property. I clenched the camera tightly, feeling its weight reassuring against my palm. I wanted to capture something, anything. Then I heard it again. A soft rustle. This time more pronounced. It was coming from the right, near the old oak tree. My hand shook as I pointed the light in that direction. Nothing. Just shadows playing tricks on my eyes. I almost turned away, convinced I was imagining things, when the rustling came again, louder this time. My body froze. "Is anyone there?" I called out, the words sounding small and fragile against the vast silence of the night. Silence. I took a cautious step toward the tree, squinting at its gnarled branches. That was when I saw it. A flash of something white, barely visible against the bark. My heart dropped. It looked like a piece of fabric caught on a branch. I moved closer, flashlight beam shaking less now, fueled by curiosity. As I reached the tree, I could see it better. A torn scrap of cloth. But it wasn't just any fabric. It looked like it came from a shirt. An old shirt, faded and tattered. Why was it here? I picked it up gingerly, feeling its coarse texture between my fingers. Had someone been here? Or worse, were they still nearby? A sudden crash from the back of the house snapped me out of my growing panic. My mind raced, pieces of a disturbing puzzle falling into chaotic place. I wasn't safe here. I had to check inside and find Jamie. I turned to sprint back to the door, but then I heard a whisper, a faint, almost ghostly sound hovering on the edge of my awareness. It was just behind me, too soft to make out, but chilling enough to freeze the blood in my veins. "Help me," it called, barely a breath, caught between the front door and the darkness behind me. I felt panic clawing at my throat. I swung the flashlight around again, trying to illuminate the area, but the beam was swallowed by shadow. I had to act. With one last look at the tree, I rushed inside, slamming the door shut behind me. Shivers coursed through me as I locked the door, but fear drove me to slice through the darkness with the flashlight again. The house felt ominous, heavier somehow, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone anymore. That's when I heard it, a soft thud upstairs. I felt my breath quicken. I wasn't prepared for what awaited me next. My heart thundered in my chest as I stood frozen in the entryway, the echoes of that thud pulling me in two directions. Part of me wanted to flee, to grab my stuff and run far away from this place. The other part urged me to go up the stairs, to confront whatever was making that sound. It was a small house, but in that moment it felt like a labyrinth of dark secrets. Taking a deep breath, I tightened my grip on the flashlight and the camera. I could hear the wood creak above me again, a soft, persistent sound that felt alive. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step feeling like a betrayal against the warnings blaring in my mind. At the top I paused, listening intently. It was quiet now, as if the house itself was holding its breath. I edged toward Jamie's room, my feet whispering against the floorboards. I hesitated outside the door, staring at the vintage doorknob that gleamed ominously in the beam of my flashlight. "Jamie?" My voice came out shaky. I needed to know if he was okay. No answer. Just as I was about to push the door open, I heard a soft scraping sound from inside the room. It sent a shiver down my spine. I hadn't even considered the possibility that the threat could be right here, in my own home. Unable to back away now, I nudged the door open, the hinges creaking like a warning. The room was dark, shadows pooling where the faint light from the hallway couldn't reach. I stepped inside, the floor creaking under my weight. "Jamie?" I called again, more tentatively this time. Nothing. But then the flashlight beam caught something on the floor. It illuminated a crumpled piece of paper near the bed. I felt a pull toward it, an instinct to find some clue, some explanation for what was happening. I walked over, my breath catching as I picked it up. It was a photograph, black and white, slightly faded, showing a group of people standing in front of this very house. Their expressions were eerily blank. It wasn't the photo itself that sent chills racing through me. It was the fact that one figure in the middle was wearing a shirt that looked startlingly similar, to the torn piece of fabric I had found outside. "Where did you get this?" I whispered, almost afraid the shadowy corners of the room would answer me back. Just then, I felt a rush of air, colder than the night outside, brush against my neck. I whirled around, the flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The shadows shifted momentarily, then froze. I was not alone. The feeling of dread swelled inside me as I peered deeper into the void. And that's when I saw it, something moving out of the corner of my eye. It was subtle, but it felt like a presence, an awareness watching me. I stumbled back, the photograph slipping from my fingers. It fluttered to the ground as my heart raced into panic mode. The thud from downstairs echoed again, now louder, both a warning and a summons. I had to decide, stay and confront whatever lay in the shadows, or turn and run before it was too late. Before I could make up my mind, a whisper broke the silence, a familiar voice that sent a jolt of icy fear through me. "Help me." I bolted back, nearly tripping over the fallen photograph. My heart raced faster as if it wanted to escape my chest completely. The voice was unmistakable. It was Jamie's. But why did it sound so distant? As if he were locked away somewhere, and I had just begun to see the truth. "Jamie?" I called again, my voice cracking. The darkness around me thickened, and I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I took a hesitant step back toward the bed, my eyes scanning every inch of the room. Nothing had changed since I'd entered. Shadows danced just beyond my flashlight's reach. But the whisper hung in the air, pulling at something deep inside me. "Help me." The voice came again, slightly louder, more pleading. It set off a fresh wave of fear, but I couldn't turn back now. Not without knowing what was happening. I grabbed the camera off my neck, my fingers trembling as I pressed the button to record. I wasn't sure if I'd capture anything, but I needed a record, something to make sense of the chaos. "Where are you, Jamie?" I asked, my voice steadier now. I turned in a slow circle, hoping to provoke some shift in the shadows. "What do you need?" Suddenly I heard it again, a soft scraping. This time it was at the far corner of the room, closer to the closet. I directed the flashlight that way, illuminating the door. It was slightly ajar, a sliver of deep black yawning before me. My breath hitched, and dread washed over me once more. Against every instinct screaming to run, I took a few tentative steps forward. The flashlight beam revealed little, shadow against shadow. But that whisper, faint yet so insistent, drew me closer. I reached for the closet door, my pulse quickening. With every inch I pulled, every creak of the wood seemed to echo with a sinister note. I could feel sweat on my brow, my hands slick against the flashlight. What was I hoping to find? But just before I could fully open it, the thud from downstairs echoed again. It sounded angry, like a fist slamming against the floor. A sobering realization hit me. It was a warning. My heart sank deep into my stomach. "Jamie!" I shouted, half in desperation, half in defiance. "I'm coming." With another firm pull, I swung the closet door wide open. A rush of cold air hit my face, and I fought against the urge to recoil. The closet was empty. No clothes hung. No shoes stood waiting. Just a void staring back at me. And that's when I noticed it. A scrap of cloth on the ground, similar to what I had found outside. I moved closer and picked it up. It felt frayed, almost alive with tension. Before I could examine it further, something shifted behind me. I spun around, ready to confront whatever lingered in the shadows. But the room was still. Tension hung thick in the air, mingling with my rapid breaths. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw it, a flicker of movement at the window. My heart leapt to my throat as I glanced toward it. Outside, a figure stood in the darkness, watching. I froze. I stood rooted in place, breath caught in my throat. The figure outside was tall and motionless, a dark silhouette against the faint glow from the street lamp. My instincts screamed at me to run, to hide, but I forced myself to move. I needed to see. The flashlight beam flickered toward the window, and as I raised it, I caught a glimpse of a face, pale, gaunt, with eyes that seemed to reflect the smallest hint of light, almost like a predator stalking its prey. I blinked hard, my mind racing. Was this the source of Jamie's voice? A chilling wave of realization washed over me. "Jamie, is that you?" I yelled, my voice cracking once more. The figure tilted its head. For a second I thought I saw recognition flicker in those hollow eyes, but it vanished just as quickly. Then, without warning, the figure turned and vanished into the night, disappearing as if it had never been there. I stumbled backwards, my heart pounding even harder. Who was that? What did they want? My thoughts raced back to the voices, Jamie's cries for help. Were they somehow connected? The thudding from downstairs returned, louder this time, a menacing sound that filled the silence following the disappearance of the figure. I couldn't ignore it. Someone, or something, was definitely in this house. I had to act. Cautiously I moved back to the door, my feet heavy on the floorboards, each creak louder than the last. The camera still dangled from my neck, almost comforting in its presence. I focused on the staircase, my heart pounding in sync with the distant thuds below. I halted at the top of the stairs, my hand gripping the railing. The light from my flashlight barely cut through the shadows. Taking a deep breath, I descended, each step feeling like a journey into a darker abyss. The thuds continued, growing louder and more erratic. They seemed to be coming from the living room. I reached the bottom, sweat pooling at the small of my back, and peered around the corner. The living room was dim, furniture outlined in shadows, and yet something felt very wrong, and then I saw it. The front door stood wide open, swinging gently on its hinges. A gust of cold wind surged inside, chilling me to the bone. I stepped closer, heart racing, and glanced outside. The porch was empty. Was the figure gone, or had they come inside? The sense of foreboding hung over me like a thick fog. Then I noticed something on the floor just inside the door. Tiny footprints, fresh and damp, leading away from the entrance and toward the kitchen. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. Whatever was happening, it was escalating. I had to find Jamie, and I had to do it fast. As I turned to retrace my steps back to the kitchen, a sharp noise cut through the silence. A laugh, chilling and echoing through the halls. My blood ran cold. Whoever was here was playing a game, and I was the unwitting player. I took one last look at the darkened living room, adrenaline surging through me. I needed answers, and I needed them now. That's when I noticed the scrap of cloth still clenched in my hand. I opened it, and my breath caught. There, written in fading ink, was a name. Jamie. I had to find him. But then another thud resonated from the kitchen. It was closer this time. I was not alone. I took a hesitant step toward the kitchen, my heart racing. The thud came again, followed by a low, unsettling noise that sounded like scraping. Fear clawed at my insides, but I couldn't turn back now. I had to find Jamie. As I crossed the threshold into the kitchen, the beam of my flashlight danced over the surfaces. The room was eerily quiet. The usual comforting hum of the refrigerator somehow muted in the thick air. I scanned for any sign of movement. Then I noticed it. Cabinets slightly ajar, as if someone had rummaged through them in a hurry. I moved closer, cautious of the footsteps that lingered on the floor. They led me to the back door, which stood ominously closed. It had been locked before. Why was it now ajar? I turned my attention back to the cabinets. The scraping sound grew louder. It was coming from beneath the sink. My pulse quickened. Had someone hidden there? I raised my flashlight, directing it toward the dark space. The beam flickered across the cold tiles and settled on an old, rusty box. It wasn't there before, I was sure of it. I knelt down, hesitating just long enough to feel the weight of dread settle in the pit of my stomach. I reached toward the box, tugging at it with trembling fingers. It slid out easily, and I caught a glimpse of a small latch on the front. "What's inside?" I whispered to myself, uncertainty flooding my thoughts. As I fumbled with the latch, the air thickened. Then I heard it again, a soft laugh, this time directly behind me. My instinct screamed to turn and run, yet I felt paralyzed. I quickly snapped the box open. Inside, crumpled papers and dark-stained photos stared back at me. I pulled them out, my mind racing. Each image showed a different figure, each shrouded in shadows, like the one I had seen outside. My hand trembled as I flipped to the next photo. In the corner of one picture, I spotted something familiar. Jamie's backpack. Just then, a scraping sound came from the back door, followed by an urgent knock. I jumped to my feet, flashlight swinging wildly. My breath caught in my throat as I turned to face the door, the laughter echoing again, but now it was mixed with a guttural whisper. "Let me in." I backed away, heart hammering against my chest. I couldn't let whoever it was in, not now. The box slipped from my fingers, clattering to the floor. I turned and headed for the living room, desperation pushing me forward. I had to get out of that house. As I reached the door, a shadow fell across it, blocking my escape. I froze, my mouth dry. The figure loomed just outside the glass, its pale face reaching for the handle. A chilling realization washed over me. I recognized those hollow eyes. Now I knew who was playing this game. "Jamie?" I whispered, dread squeezing my heart. But when the door swung open, it revealed only the night, a cold breeze brushing past me. Jamie was nowhere in sight, but I knew he was close. A sudden slam resounded from the kitchen, followed by another laugh, sharp and taunting. I glanced back at the darkened room. Whatever was hunting me had just begun. I bolted for the front door, panic coursing through me like a live wire. My heart raced as I stepped into the chilling darkness outside, the urgency of my situation pounding in my ears. I pointed the flashlight back toward the house, praying to see light filtering from the windows, any sign that Jamie was okay. Instead, I saw only swirling shadows where familiar shapes used to be. In my haste, I tripped, falling hard to the ground. The flashlight slipped from my grasp and landed several feet away, its beam flickering on uneven terrain. I scrambled to my feet, but that laughter echoed once more, hanging in the air, growing louder and more menacing. It sounded almost like Jamie's voice, playful yet twisted. "Jamie!" I shouted into the night, desperation punctuating my words. I didn't hear a response, just silence that felt suffocating. I scanned the sparse trees bordering the property, palms slick with sweat. Then it hit me, a fleeting memory of Jamie's backpack. The way it had looked in those photos, weighted down, perhaps filled with something. A sudden thought, unsettling enough to freeze my blood, slashed through my mind. What if he wasn't alone? Before I could make sense of it, a whisper slipped through the air. "Help me." I felt a shiver crawl up my spine. Was that Jamie? I pivoted toward the sound, heart thrumming in rhythm with my fear. Moving deeper into the shadows, I aimed the flashlight in the direction of the voice. My pulse quickened as I inched forward, scanning the dense tree line for any trace of him. "Jamie!" I called again, trying to steady my voice, but it came out shaky. The laugh erupted again, closer this time. I stopped in my tracks, every instinct screaming at me to run. Instead, I pressed on, my curiosity battling with terror. As I crossed the threshold between the yard and the woods, branches clawed at my arms, and the chill wrapped around me like a suffocating shroud. I stumbled into an opening, a small glade illuminated by the moon's feeble light. It was eerily quiet, but then I noticed something half hidden in the underbrush. It was Jamie's backpack. My heart sank like a stone. I rushed towards it, hoping against hope that he was nearby, that he was somehow safe. Kneeling, I unzipped it quickly. It appeared empty. But then I found a crumpled note at the bottom. I unfolded it, hands shaking, but the words made my blood run cold. "You shouldn't have come here." Panic flooded my veins. Who had written this? The winds whispered through the trees, drowning out any rational thought. Then I heard it again, a whisper, impossibly soft but clear. "You need to leave now." I shot up, scanning the surrounding woods, my breath hitching. A shape darted behind a tree just out of reach of my flashlight. I squinted into the darkness. Suddenly, a scream pierced the quiet, and I froze. It was Jamie's voice, calling for help. "Jamie!" I couldn't think. I tore off in the direction of the sound, dodging branches and roots. I felt dread twisting in my gut as I stumbled deeper into the forest. Fear propelled my legs, pounding against the earth, desperate to reach him. With a sudden jolt, everything went dark. The flashlight flickered and died, leaving me in a suffocating blackness. Panic clawed at my throat. I was alone. Trapped. "Help me!" The voice drifted again, and I focused on it, the last flicker of hope. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me, waiting. And that's when I realized I wasn't the only one searching. I stood frozen in the inky darkness, heart racing, breath quickening. The echoes of Jamie's voice faded into the night, leaving me alone with my fear. The realization crashed over me. I wasn't alone out here. Something was watching, lurking just beyond sight in the shadows. Desperation clawed through me. I took a cautious step forward, hands splayed out in front of me, reaching for anything. Branches, dirt, a sign that I was still on the path. The forest felt alive, each rustle making my skin crawl. I needed to find Jamie. I needed to get out. "Jamie!" I called again, my voice rising in pitch. Each syllable sliced through the silence, but the oppressive darkness swallowed my words. I strained to listen, but all I could hear was the pounding of my heart and a faint rustle echoing through the trees, either my imagination or something close behind. I stumbled forward again, the moist earth yielding beneath my feet. Frantically, I clawed at my camera, hoping the flash would provide me some clarity. It flickered to life, casting a weak circle of light ahead. What I saw froze my blood. In the dim beam, figures flickered just beyond the trees, shadowy forms that slid between the trunks as if tethered to the night itself. They weren't human. Their movements were too fluid, too unnatural. Panic surged, and a heavy pit opened in my stomach. "Help me!" The voice came again, but it was muffled, slurred, as if submerged underwater. A chill traveled down my spine, and I flinched at the sound. Was that really Jamie? I couldn't tell if it was desperate hope or the dark entities before me conjuring the sound. I pressed on, desperately steering toward where I thought his voice originated. But as I moved deeper, the oppressive ambiance tightened, making it hard to breathe. The flashlight beam wobbled as my hands shook. The figures were growing closer, their whispers flickering like a taunting chorus on the wind. Suddenly, a sharp pain pierced through my foot and I stumbled, losing my balance. I crashed against the ground, scraping my hands on the rough roots. Frantic, I scrambled to my feet, and that's when I saw it. A flash of white caught between the gnarled branches. "Jamie!" I yelled, rushing toward it. I felt drawn, almost gravitated, but somewhere deep down, an instinct warned me of the danger. I didn't care. My heart pounding in my chest, I finally reached it. It was Jamie's shirt, torn and caught on a branch. I yanked it free, but in doing so I felt the shifting air around me change. A cold rush of wind, almost alive, like a dark spirit exhaling sharply. Then the laughter surged, filling the space around me, echoing sinisterly as invisible figures began to surround me. My breath quickened, fear spiraling out of control. "You need to leave. Get away from me," I shouted, but no one answered. There was only darkness. I spun around, flashlight darting uselessly, desperately seeking sanctuary, but the unsettled shadows slipped even closer, murmuring nearly inaudible warnings that turned my thoughts to static. I took off running, knowing the danger was closing in behind me. Just as I lost my footing again, I found myself standing at the base of a sudden incline. Climbing up and away from the darkness felt like a fight for salvation. I scrambled, pushing against the dirt and navigating the rocks without caring for balance. Then, just as I reached the top, I fell into an eerie clearing bathed in moonlight. I caught my breath and paused to listen. Silence. But it was alluring silence, draping over me like a shroud, clinging tight until I thought I could hear my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. And then there he was. "Jamie!" I shouted with an exhaled breath. But the figure turned. Not Jamie, at least not the Jamie I knew. It was him, yes, but the emptiness in his eyes terrified me. He looked different. Shadows danced in the hollows of his face. He raised a hand that seemed to beckon, but I felt only dread. I backed away slowly, scrambling to understand what had happened. Was this a trick? A way to lure me back into the dark? "Jamie, it's me. Where are we? We need to get out of here." He didn't respond, just stared, frozen in place. The surrounding shadows were stirring again, sensing my hesitation, my fear. The laughter erupted once more, and I knew I couldn't stay. I turned to run, but instead, I felt an iron grip on my shoulder. "Help me." I spun around, and Jamie's eyes bore into mine, filled with desperate longing. And just like that, a cacophony of voices surrounded us. No. More shadows darted in, swirling around, their howls blending with his call, twisting it into something monstrous. "You shouldn't have come here," they whispered in unison, their voices a chilling echo of what I'd read on the note. In a fraught moment of clarity, I darted towards the trees that bordered the clearing. I ran through the forest with a single thought. I needed to escape. The darkness followed, and their joined laughter filled the void as branches reached out like hands, clawing at my arms, slowing me down. I couldn't tell whether I was running toward salvation or deeper into their darkness. The forest twisted around me, tangled branches obstructing my path, diverting me further into a maze of terror. Would I ever see Jamie again? There was no answer, only the endless shadows clutching at my heels. As I tore deeper, guilt washed over me. But I had to survive. Whatever Jamie had become, I couldn't save him. Not like this. All I could do was escape, as the forest shrieked in chaos around me. I could only hope that he would find peace amidst the dark, lingering mysteries that surrounded the cabin. The truth hazy but undeniable, but deep down, an unsettling whisper clawed at my mind. Even if I escaped, I knew I would never truly be free. I could feel the shadows still watching, still waiting. And I was left with one lingering thought. What would happen next?